Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We've got bill hearings today. I think we have, let's see, 12 bills. The order is as it is out on the big board out there. We'll begin with 425, Senator Alfrith, Maryland Historic Trust. Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Senator Sarah Alfrith here to present Senate Bill 425, Maryland Historic Trust Historic Preservation Partnership Program and Fund. Colleagues, the Maryland Historical Trust has had a historic preservation loan program for a number of years. Due to a number of bureaucratic issues, they have not been able to fully utilize the funding and get it out the door as quickly or as efficiently as I know they think is possible. I think this committee would agree with that. So what the bill does, as it's drafted currently, is take that loan program out of MHT and give it to a nonprofit to utilize and get that money out the door. Since we've introduced the bill, we've been working with MHT, and I'd like to thank Elizabeth Hughes, who's here with us today, on a proposed amendment. Unfortunately, we got the amendment back yesterday. It doesn't necessarily work quite yet, so we'll get it to the committee. But what we would like to do is, instead of transferring the loan entirely out of MHT, we would allow for MHT to work with a nonprofit partner to make sure the money is getting out the door and that we're seeing the necessary leveraging of economic development that we know we can utilize when it comes to this loan program and the historic preservation opportunities that we have in the state. Nick Redding is here, Mr. Chair, who's going to speak to some possibilities and potential of the loan program if we can, in fact, get the amendment correct and make sure that the loan program is actually going to be, again, a partnership with a nonprofit that can get that money out the door and leveraged properly. So as soon as we have that amendment, Mr. Chair, we'll bring it forward to this committee, and I would request that we work together to pass it favorably with amendments. And with that, I'd like to pass it to my committee or my panel. Yes.
Mr. Chair, my name is Nicholas Redding. I'm the president and CEO of Preservation Maryland. And pleased to be here today to present on SB 425. As Senator Alfrith said, we hope to see the amendments very soon, but it's a pretty simple piece of legislation with potentially major impacts. The amended version, which is forthcoming rather, simply provides MHT with the authority to make an expenditure from an existing fund. So without the appropriation of new dollars, we have the potential to make pretty big impacts here. It would allow a preservation nonprofit to establish a revolving fund, and I know Preservation Maryland is interested in applying for this, and create a revolving fund that would allow for the quick and timely expenditure of funds to save threatened historic places. So that could be done either through short-term loans in order to find a preservation buyer, option agreements to get a threatened property off of a sale and to find a preservation buyer, bridge loans for nonprofits using grants, or even in investment of funds in for-profits that are looking to acquire historic structures and need to move quickly in and out, or loan loss reserves. This concept is based on an existing successful model of working between a state historic preservation office and a preservation nonprofit. One that's been done in Virginia with Preservation Virginia and the Department of Historic Resources there. And I think just in closing, we've come to this and are interested in this because of our experience in doing property redevelopment and are advocating for it from that perspective. We worked on an amazing project in the Jonathan Street community of Hagerstown yes, Senator Benson. And a project like that would have allowed us to move, funding like this would have allowed us to move much quicker on a project like that and save more history. So with the bell, I'll turn it over to the other members of the panel.
I was going to give you a couple more seconds for Senator Benson's yell, but you know.
Well, I'll use that to say we urge a favorable report on the amended version.
Hello, everyone. I'm Acting Secretary Flora with the Department of Planning, and I think this group has worked really well together cooperatively to come up with a really great approach to speed to market. Really trying to get programs out on the ground quicker and better and faster, and yet still with quality. So I would like to actually just turn it over to Director Hughes to tell you about the details from our perspective of this collaborative.
Sure. So, the MHT loan program is one of the earliest programs that the Maryland Historical Trust has. It's from 1973. We've given out about 60 loans during the past 50 years. So it has been used, particularly in times when the market interest rate was quite high. So you can imagine the past few years when we've had unusually low interest rates, it hasn't been a very compelling product. It is helpful in unusual situations. I think there's some elements of the statutes, like the requirement of the conveyance of a historic preservation easement for loan recipients, as well as the requirement for private individual and for-profit borrowers to have 2 turn down letters from the private lending market, with the idea that the state shouldn't be competing with the private market. So those are a couple unusual aspects of the MHT loan program that has made it usable in particular situations, but not widely used, particularly in times of low interest rates. So we really started internally talking about this. How do we make the program more flexible and used by a broader audience of folks? And talked about partnering with a nonprofit, as many other states have done with supporting nonprofit loan programs. So Preservation Maryland is the perfect partner here to speak to their good work. And we expect that with the amended bill that we look forward to seeing, we'll have really positive preservation outcomes for a wide variety of users.
Any questions for this panel? Thank you all very much. And Secretary in particular, we're happy to see you here. We appreciate the department giving its opinion.
Appreciate it. Thank you all.
I think we had one other person signed up, but I don't see him here, Bob Benton. Okay, then we'll move on to your second bill,
Okay.
364.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a panel for this one as well, if it's okay if they come up.
Sure.
Okay. Colleagues, Senator Sarah Elfreth here to testify in support of Senate Bill 364, property tax credit dwellings of public safety officers, retired personnel. Relatively simple bill. This committee in particular has done a tremendous job over the last few years, expanding enabling legislation to our local partners to better define and expand property taxes for first responders. What this bill does is just say that they can extend that to retired personnel as well. And I think that goes hand in hand with a lot of work this committee has done over the years to try to keep our retirees in state. You're going to hear from a firefighter today who and others who lost their property tax credits upon retirement. And I don't think that's our intention, certainly. But we want to make sure that this is truly enabling. So MACO has requested a clarifying amendment to make sure it's not an automatic extension, that it would still be necessary and incumbent upon the counties to then opt into this new program as well. But I do think it is very much on par with the work that we've done over the last few years. And with that pending the clarifying amendment, Mr. Chair, I would urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Donald Kelly, and I worked for the Anne Arundel County Fire Department for over 35 years. I had a cardiac arrest event on the job a couple years ago, so I had to retire a little bit sooner than my original plan. But I've been living in the county for over 20 years, and that's where I've raised my kids. I still do things for the fire department. I still teach CPR for the community. Because I'm a prime example that it works. And I got the retirement, I got the tax credit for 2 years, but then after retiring, I was no longer able to get it. So I would love to be able to, receive that again. And I'm sure many of my retired colleagues would like to have that also. Thank you for your consideration.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Jeff Buttle, President of the Professional Firefighters of Maryland. We represent over 10,000 active and retired firefighters and emergency medical services personnel across the state of Maryland. I think the senator and our retired firefighter said everything very well. So I'll just leave it as we support the bill as well. We also support a clarifying amendment. I think it's clear that this is enabling legislation. It always has been to be, that leaves it up to local jurisdictions to adopt it as they choose. But if we need to clarify the clarifying amendment, that's fine with us as well. Thank you.
Always good to clarify the clarifying.
That's right.
Any questions? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is 359. This is one of mine. Community college tuition and residency waivers funding. I've had this bill in before and I haven't been able to get across the finish line. So instead of me presenting it, I decided that I'd bring one of my team in and maybe they can get it across the finish line this time. This is Nick Carpenter, who is a fellow working in the office.
Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Chair.
You can pull a little closer to you. It'll pull out
Can you hear me?
further. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the introduction. So Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, as Chair Gazzoni just said, I'm Nick Carpenter. I'm a legislative fellow in Senator Gazzoni's office, here to present Senate Bill 359. This bill received a favorable report from this committee last session and passed the Senate as well last session. The current Maryland law requires community colleges to waive tuition and residency fees completely or partially for students in need, service members and their family, students pursuing workforce areas of critical needs, and other classes of students. However, waiving the fees does not waive the cost of providing an education for the thousands of students for whom these waivers have been granted. Currently, Maryland's community colleges must fully absorb that revenue loss without state financial assistance, causing those community colleges to lose millions of dollars in revenue. As a result, those community colleges must waive costs and fees for students, other students who are not covered by the waivers, while putting additional strain on local governments and county governments, which can only cover part of the deficit anyway. This burden does not mean that we should do away with tuition and residency waivers as a whole. Instead, community colleges should be empowered to use the entirety of their annual funding without being punished for making the education they provide affordable. This is where Senate Bill 359 comes in. This bill would require the governor to appropriate $10 million to the Maryland Higher Education Commission on an annual basis over 3 years, starting in fiscal year 2025. The commission would use that money to reimburse community colleges based on the proportion of the total population of qualified students they enroll at their institution. For example, a community college that enrolls 20% of the total population of qualified students in Maryland would receive 20% of the $10 million appropriation. Using this appropriation to reward community colleges for enrolling more students, qualified students relative to their peer institutions, and expand access to education for qualified students while reducing the need to increase costs for other students, increasing accessibility across the board. It would also require the Maryland Higher Education Commission to produce a report on how these waivers are used and how the funding is paid out to the various community colleges participating in the program. So yeah, with that, I ask for a favorable report and thank you for letting me to speak today.
See, I told you it'd be better than me.
I don't know about that, but.
Well, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I too want to thank the sponsor for introducing this legislation again, and also thank Nick. I think he deserves a win for his time at the table here. But this is no stranger bill. You've seen this a couple of years now. It has become a strategic priority of our president's. And just to give you an understanding of how significant this tuition waiver is, the state actually requires us to waive more tuition than we actually even receive in our state's largest need-based financial aid programs, the Howard P. Rollins Educational Excellence Awards. So we're waiving more tuition than we actually are able to award need-based financial aid for. And like Nick said, these are some of the most vulnerable, high-need populations that receive these waivers that also require the most support services from our institutions. These are foster care recipients, disabled students, homeless youth, seniors, and it's over time beginning to expand to a point where there really needs to be a policy that helps this population afford to go to college with the right incentives to create the structure in place versus the perverse incentives that we have now where we are required to waive the tuition. With that, I think Nick has said everything nicely, and I will just urge a favorable report, and thank you so much.
Question. The money would be distributed by the use of the waivers or be distributed by the total number of students at a community college?
I think it would be more of a reimbursement for the waivers that we have. And actually what's listed here, waivers have only grown. So for example, dual enrollment isn't even one that's being captured. And we're receiving about 75% of the cost of tuition for the expansion of dual enrollment. So there's more need than $10 million would fill.
But I'm trying to understand how it would be distributed. I'm missing that.
Well, we waive the tuition and it would be distributed based on for each college, how much was waived at that
Okay,
college.
so it was based on the use of the waivers. It's not based on just the number of students at the institute.
Correct.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I got you.
Okay, we have Daria Willis, our president from Howard County Community College, online.
Thank you, Senator. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for sponsoring SB 359 to provide fiscal relief to Maryland's community colleges that collectively waive millions of dollars each year in state-mandated tuition and residency waivers. While commendable, waivers have an unintended consequence because they place a financial burden on community colleges, which must make up that loss in other ways. The result is increased fiscal impact on students not covered by waivers, and waivers often hurt the students who need the help the most. For instance, last fall, 47% of Howard Community College credit students received financial aid, and 52% of those students were at or below the poverty line. With HCC enrollment at nearly 23,000 students annually, the cost of every state mandated waiver is staggering. HCC loses $1.77 million each year from all tuition and residency waivers combined. This is funding that could instead be used for wraparound services to support students through graduation and other issues that we need. SB 359 would help offset the cost of waivers such as those for senior citizens. And when you remove waivers for dual enrollment and our employees, 25% of the remaining waivers are used for seniors in credit courses, and 85% of non-credit waivers are used by our seniors. The total cost for seniors adds up, for example, to more than $250,000. I commend you all and Howard County Delegate Feldmark for working to pass this bill. Now I ask you to support community colleges by keeping them fiscally whole and by providing quality, affordable, locally provided higher education that the great state of Maryland deserves. Please vote favorable for SB 359 to support your community colleges.
Thank you, Madam President. We have also online Brianna January.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. For the record, Brianna January, representing the Maryland Association of Counties, in strong support of SB 539. I see that President Willis and I both got the memo for this hearing's black and pearl dress code. Good to always match. As the chair said, this bill has been in for a few years now, and we do hope that this session we can get it across the finish line with the help of this committee. I'm deeply sorry that my broken foot has prevented me from being there in person with you all today. But again, thank you, Mr. Chair, for being a great partner and a great collaborator and supporter of our community colleges. Committee, you've heard me say this before, but counties are proud to support our community colleges. And you've already heard why this bill is so important, so I won't repeat it. I'll just reiterate that it's community college students and county governments at the end of the day that are currently eating this loss of revenue. SB 539 would right that wrong and would be a strong demonstration of the state's commitment to an equitable distribution of support for our community colleges. For these reasons, MACO urges a favorable report from the committee and hope that we can get it across the line this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for any of the witnesses? Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I've got the next one also. This bill actually comes to us from the IAC. Is the panel here? Down here? So there's a history that we've had over the last several years. I think starting back in 2017 with the Knott Commission, and some of you may remember the Knott Commission trying to make our school construction process better, more efficient, the whole bit. And at part of the conclusion of sort of the things that were hopefully to get done, and what the primary mission of this bill is to make the IAC an independent body outside of the MSD, right? So that's the basis of it. There are some interesting twists and turns along the way that we'll hear about today from them, but that's the gist of it. There are some places in here where we're changing some dollar limits on when the superintendent has to be involved in making decision making. We're raising those dollar limits, and there are some interesting questions around some programs that we have, the Safe Schools program and another program, Aging Schools program. But I'm going to let the folks from the IAC talk about that and how that all fits together in this vision of how to make this a more effective agency. Mr. Donahue.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for having us here today. With me is Cassandra Viscara, our Deputy Director for Administration. I'm Alex Donahue, Executive Director. Senator Casemeyer, our chair, sends his regrets for not being able to make this due to a personal appointment. But I'd like to follow up. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your introduction. In 2018, the 21st Century School Facilities Act expanded the IAC to become a 9-member commission and moved it partway towards independent agency status. There have been since a number of statutory changes, including big ones last year in the Built to Learn Act, that have added to the scope and complexity of the IAC's responsibilities. Completing the process of making the IAC an independent unit of government would greatly support the 9-member commission, who are a mix of both appointed and ex officio members, in executing these expanded responsibilities. Under this bill, the IAC would take direct responsibility for activities that are now handled partially by the State Department of Education, including our procurement, HR, operating budget management, and IT services, tapping the support as needed of the appropriate control agencies who are already involved right now in our activities. The vast majority of these functions can be absorbed by existing IAC staff, effectively freeing up MSDE staff from serving as a middleman for the IAC in these areas. And although Superintendent Chaudhary and his chief of staff were not able to make this hearing due to another conflicting hearing today, they have expressed their strong support for this bill, and we have been partnering with them all along in preparation of the testimony here. And they would be submitting written testimony in support of this. In summary, the shift would streamline the process for all of the agencies involved and save both time and cost for IAC and MSDE. The bill also would update a few other statutory provisions to align them with the 21st Century and Built to Learn Acts. And I'm happy to outline those if there's desire. All right, thank you. The first would allow the superintendent to designate another appropriate person to approve the plan or specifications for projects at more than $500,000 rather than the $350,000 limit threshold that's been in law for many, many years and is quite out of date in light of the cost escalation and inflation that we've seen. The second would provide to the appointing authority for each IAC member the ability to remove that commission member due to incompetence, misconduct, or failure to perform their duties. Currently, there is no ability provided for in case of those situations. A third would remove legacy language requiring the Board of Public Works to approve allocations for one of our programs, which of course has been superseded by statutory provisions since 2018. Another would add the Department of General Services to a project initiative that is an IAC and State Department of Education shared project to develop life cycle cost analyses standards to tap DGS's needed expertise there. And another would reinstate sunset clauses established in the 21st Century Schools Act of 2018 for two of our programs, smaller programs that have been around for some years, the Aging Schools Program and the School Safety Grant Program. The repeal of these programs, or really its replacement by the larger priority fund, was approved by the General Assembly as part of the Built to Learn Act, the 21st Century Schools Act in 2018, but somehow was deleted in the Built to Learn Act last year. This would restore that sunset clause for those two programs. And we support this bill because it would streamline our operations and allow for greater efficiency and effectiveness. Happy to stand for any questions.
So certainly welcome any questions, but I think because this is so important to all of us and to all of our communities, we'll probably have a little work group to make sure we completely understand all the different component parts of this. But certainly if there are any questions at this time, were you also going to testify? No, okay. Senator McKay.
Executive Director Donnie, it's always good to see you and just thank you for your leadership. As you know, I had some challenges with your past predecessor in reference to a couple of schools that we had in my respective jurisdiction. Can you help me understand, like, how does this bill still hold a certain level of accountability for if there are issues with the respective agency at that time? And also, I assume that you all don't have Senate confirmation because it's still, you all don't have Senate confirmation, but is that something that you all would think about in reference to becoming an independent agency?
That hadn't been raised previously. We'd have to look into it, but in response to your question about MSDE specifically, the MSDE Office of School Facilities is an integral part of the IAC working team, right? We are interagency commission because we do tap Department of Planning, DGS, and MSDE folks, including their architects. Our processes are set up so that they are fully involved in the projects that they should be involved in, both state funded and local only. And I don't think there's any way that this completion of our IAC independence process would have any negative effects. If anything, it's going to make it better for getting the projects that need to be handled, particularly some of the ones that you've mentioned before, and move forward in the quickest way possible. We have been working with city schools, particularly recently on those projects, and have another meeting scheduled for next week. Very good progress. So happy to say that I think this would only help. I can't see any downside.
Yep. No, I appreciate you. And Mr. Chair, I'll take my conversation offline.
Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the briefing. I'll speak from the standpoint of being from Prince George's County, but representing parts of Charles and Calvert County. So Prince George's County was the first school system a few years back that entered into enabling legislation to allow for local governments to engage, should they choose, to public-private partnership regarding the schools because of the challenges of getting construction and refurbishing of buildings. So can you speak, and I know the work group is going to delve further into this. How does this work to help alleviate? So everyone's in queue. We have well over 200 schools, and the largest county for me, Prince George's. How does this work in our favor? Should we look at this? So,
Senator, thank you so much for that question. We are working with Prince George's County Public Schools right now on multiple levels to identify the best way to address their facilities needs and to bring to bear as much of the dollars that are available through the state and local processes to those projects. This bill would in fact allow us to move more quickly, to be more efficient about providing the support and technical assistance to Prince George's County Public Schools. And that public-private partnership initiative has been making very good headway. In fact, over the last few months, we worked with PGCPS to do an analysis independent of their planning process to confirm that the projects they have proposed for their second public-private partnership arrangement will deliver the benefits to their portfolio that they believed they would. And we found that they absolutely would. In fact, they would be a couple of percentage points better than we had originally expected. I mean, it's a very good package. And so we're continuing to work with them on moving that forward. There are a number of steps in the process. It does take time and a number of other actors' participation, including the Stadium Authority, but that is moving forward well. And this would only allow us to have more wind in our sails.
Thank you very much. If I might, Mr. Chairman. So I'm glad to hear that. We are very, for those of us from Prince George, we're very proud of that process. We are running up against nearly 10 schools by the end of the calendar year, I believe. Since that, I know Baltimore City and Charles County, another one of my counties, engaged last year in the process, and this year myself and Senator Bailey are seeking it for Calvary County. And so we just wanted to make sure we got some sort of sense of the partnership and the ability for us to actually ensure that our future leaders are in buildings that are conducive to learning. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Following up on Senator Jackson's question, to what extent are other jurisdictions looking at P3s? I'm just not up to date.
Not many are. They've been utilized in the education sector, primarily in Canada, not the United
No,
States.
I know that. I meant in Maryland. Is anybody
So,
looking at it? Seriously?
Well, there's discussion currently for Calvert, and then
Calvert, okay.
Charles County last year did a work group that I helped with and sat on, and that is now concluded. And I believe there's results of that coming to the legislators from that. So that's really an ongoing process. I don't think it's by any means finished.
But those are the only places so far. There aren't other
Correct.
jurisdictions.
Yes. Yes, sir.
The city's looking at it?
Not in any official way that we're aware of.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, as a champion of that approach at the very beginning, I was very pleased to see Prince George lead the United States in doing it, not lead North America, because you're right, Canada came first. But I'm glad to see it's going forward in Prince George's, but I'd love to see other jurisdictions look at it. So I would just encourage you probably are, but to the extent that you can encourage other folks to look at it. I mean, to me, it's a big long-term answer to maintenance of buildings. Because if you don't have a P3, the incentives are all off. And to me, that's the big benefit. So I'd encourage you to encourage others to look at it.
Thank you. Stand absolutely ready to help any jurisdiction that wants to look into that or to move forward. And with Prince George's, we're there with them every step of the way. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay, well, we'll be reaching out with you soon to have you come in, and we'll get a little deeper into all of this.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, Senator King, you ready? 350, early childhood development. The panel.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I'm waiting for Dr. Chowdhury, who's across the street. He's in favor of the bill, but he was going to testify. So if he doesn't get here in time, I'll just do it without him. But if we could start with 348, would that be okay?
348, sure.
Give him a couple more minutes.
Sure.
Okay, I do have a panel. You Heidi?
Yes, I'm Heidi.
Okay, is Morgan? Okay. Okay, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, as of fiscal year 2021, there were over 3.2 million registered book borrowers in Maryland. Those residents visited libraries across the state over 3.2 million times and borrowed over 34.5 million items. As a reminder, this was during the pandemic. The State Library Resource Center, SLRC, is the state library for Maryland and supports our libraries across the state by providing cooperative, cost-effective resources and services for our libraries and their customers. SLRC is funded at a per state resident rate. For fiscal year 2024, the SLRC will be funded at a rate of $1.97 per state resident. Senate Bill 348 will gradually increase funding over the next 6 fiscal years of FY 2030 rate at $2.52 per state resident. This legislation will allow our state library to continue to offer the services that are so important to our libraries and our residents of all ages, and I respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 348.
Thank you. Panel can begin whenever.
So thank you. Thank you, Senator King, and thank you, Chair and the distinguished members of the committee for hearing me today. I'm Heidi Daniel, President and CEO of the ENET Pratt Free Library, State Library Resource Center. As has been mentioned, we were established as in 1971 as the State Resource Center because it was more economical for the state of Maryland for us to be providing and coordinating services throughout the entire state. And that remains true to today. Our collections, we have 2.2 million items, including books in all its formats, newspapers, magazines, films, maps, Maryland materials, music, pamphlets, plays, photographs, the African American Department, prints, drawings, special collections, state and federal documents, and a lot more. We've loaned more than 300,000 items in the last year. We have a full repository of Maryland state government collections, subject and age level specialists who are available online, in person, and on phone for reference assistance, and has provided more than 255,000 questions answered in the last year. We also have our Digital Maryland collection. We also have our Sailor databases, which are provided free of charge to public libraries, school libraries, and private school libraries throughout the state of Maryland, and they have been searched 10.6 million times. We also have our network and infrastructure, which provides free internet to public libraries, city governments, and partners all around the state. In fact, the city of Denton and also Hagerstown, their entire city government is supported by our Sailor network. So in light of all the services we provide economically, we ask for a favorable review of this report. Thank you. And now I turn it over to Morgan Miller from Cecil County.
That's good.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gazone, Vice Chair Rosa Pepe, and members of the committee. My name is Morgan Miller. I'm the Executive Director of the Cecil County Public Library, and in addition, I'm here representing the Maryland Association of Public Library Administrators, which accounts for all 24 library systems in Maryland. In addition to backing up what my colleague Heidi Daniel has to say, I'm here to talk to you specifically about what the resources of the State Library Resource Center mean to a county like Cecil County. I recently was writing our annual report letter, and I quoted a children's book author saying that the library is infinity under a roof. Resources that come to us through the State Library Resource Center truly help us to create that infinity. They provide many important services to both school and public libraries, including essential broadband and digital resources. They truly maximize the return on state and local dollars, and they allow our county library systems to operate most efficiently. They're the most cost-effective way to connect all Marylanders with a multitude of valuable services. As Heidi listed many of them: workforce, small business training, historical and special collections. What's very essential for us in Cecil County: database access and interlibrary loan. With a very limited budget for print collections in Cecil County, using SLRC's critical interlibrary loan service allows us to bring hundreds of thousands of books to our community that we wouldn't be able to otherwise. As Heidi said, last year, Marylanders performed more than 10.6 million searches using their databases. For us in Cecil County, that means we get access to college and career test prep, foreign language resources, and online genealogical resources, which is something we could never purchase on our own as a standalone county. I had the honor of serving on their strategic planning committee for their most recent plan, and I'm very excited by their ambitious goals that focus their resources on expanding digital equity across the state and training library staff to deliver in-demand 21st century resources. So I ask that you support 348 for passage so that no Marylander or library is left behind.
No, he's yielded his time to me, so we're good.
Very good. So your presentation's great. Thank you. Any questions for this panel? Okay. Thank
Okay.
you all very much.
Thank you.
Chairman, I'm going to go ahead with this next bill.
Yes,
It's
please.
it's such a good bill that it won't matter whether the superintendent's here or not,
Every one
because
of
you're
your
all going to
bill,
want to.
every one of your bills is, Senator.
I know that. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, over the past 5 years, Maryland's Child Care Scholarship Program has made huge strides, going from one of the worst programs in the country to one of the best. We did this through collaboration with the legislature, the administration, MSDE, and federal funds. Senate Bill 350 will ensure that these great strides we have made do not end. This legislation will codify the program's current funding levels while leaving room for growth. The legislation also guarantees access to the program to all qualifying families and eliminates freezes and wait lists that have been used in the past for cost cutting. Under the bill, the governor and the legislature still have the ability to take necessary action in the event of dire fiscal circumstances. This program is one of the most important programs that we can offer to our families and is critical for parents who are trying to get into or remain in the workforce. And I ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 350.
Very good.
I do have.
Yeah, did you have folks that they can
we
certainly
do have
come up?
some, if they're here. Come on up.
Christiana. Yeah, and Laura. I have 3. Look at that. And there they are. You can just begin, whoever would like to start.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. My name is Laura Whale-Dryer. I'm the Executive Director of Maryland Family Network, a statewide early childhood advocacy organization. I appreciate this opportunity to testify in strong support of this critical legislation. You have my written testimony, so I'll be brief. As recently as 5 years ago, I would have had to tell you, sitting here, that according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Maryland had one of the very worst child care scholarship programs in the country. Our reimbursement rates were abysmally low, our family eligibility was tightly constricted, and our co-payment structure made even subsidized care unaffordable for many parents. The child care scholarship program simply wasn't doing its job of helping parents enter and stay in the workforce by subsidizing the high cost of childcare. We didn't start out that way. We got there after years of backsliding. Since 2018, we've made dramatic improvement in all those areas, thanks to major legislation by Senator King, Speaker Jones, Delegate Solomon, and all of you, as well as important initiatives from MSDE. The legislation now before you will guarantee that inertia and backsliding never again undermines the program that keeps parents earning and children learning. It will make permanent the latest round of child care scholarship improvements that MSD implemented in May of 2022. I submit to you that our investment in child care scholarship is one of the most important and rewarding we can make. One last note, I know that several members of this committee have a particular interest in services to children with disabilities. The good news here is that scholarship has long prioritized children with disabilities, and as scholarship funding increases, so does the special rate that reimburses for any children with disabilities in care. I just want to call your attention to supporting written testimony from the Developmental Disabilities Council for more details on that aspect of this bill. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Good afternoon. I'm Christina Push, Executive Director of the Maryland State Child Care Association. And thank you, Chair Gazone and Vice Chair Rosa Pepp and Committee. MSCCA extends our sincere gratitude to the sponsor, Senator King of Senate Bill 350, and your recognition of the long-term critical investments needed in the child care scholarship system showcases your important support for Maryland's children and their families. As MSCCA's 5,000 members recognize that children are our most important natural resource, we enthusiastically support
Senate Bill 350, as the Child Care Scholarship Program allows more eligible Marylanders to work productively and contribute to our state economy and access to consistent quality child care options they deserve. As you have heard about the dramatic improvements our wealthy state has finally made in this program, we need to now protect these investments while working to make childcare more affordable. The scholarship levels of funding must be reflective of inflation and reflective equitable business model, as many businesses are suffering to keep up with all the costs. Our programs do not want to increase tuition to try and pay fair compensation to early childhood educators or keep up with competition in the workforce, as the childcare workforce has been slower to recover nationally and in Maryland. One of our members, Celebrate Schools, was hoping to testify, but sent some comments I will share now. Celebrate established a support system to help alleviate the burdens of families struggling to locate and access quality childcare and navigate a very complicated application process for subsidy. They developed their own presumptive eligibility and walked their families through the arduous process to apply for scholarships. They now serve 3,000 children in our state, and more than 600, almost 20%, benefit from the scholarship program. With the passage of SB 350, no longer will Celebrate and many other childcare programs have to be deterred or deny any family's access to quality childcare due to insufficient reimbursement rates or the inability to pay co-payments. Childcare is an economic and equity imperative. We must invest early and continuously allow children to have safe, quality childcare, which leads to best outcomes for school readiness and life and allows families to work, go to school, which has best outcome for Maryland economy. We ask for a favorable report.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. My name is Carolina Reyes, and I am the owner and director of Arco Iris Bilingual Children's Center in Prince George County. I have been here in the past. I think many of you probably have listened to many of us advocating for childcare. And I first want to say thank you for being able to support the families of Maryland. Today, I'm here once again to ask for continued support of our Maryland families. Since Maryland increased the income levels to 70th percentile, more families are able to participate and obtain great benefits. Those children can be part of quality early centers like mine, where we lay social and emotional foundations for them and allowing these children to enter and excel to kindergarten. Since giving testimony last year, I have gone from having only 3 families in the childcare programs to 9. And right now, 3 of more of them are awaiting for the results of approval. This scholarship is key for our families, especially those vulnerable families like Marisol, an example of one of my families. An immigrant single mother does not know how to write in her home language, and she needs to have assistance and depends on others to be able to do the application for her. She has been waiting since December. Unfortunately, some of the problems were that the paperwork were not in PDF, and that's something that we need to work on as well. Right now, we were able to fix and send the information, but she's still waiting and is not able to work yet. We fixed it, we are waiting, and we are still holding in my space in, I'm sorry. Meanwhile, I'm holding the spot for her because I want the child to have access to quality early education in a bilingual environment where I can serve the family in their primary language. This example is to tell you that we still have work to do to improve the system, but we also come a long way to help our families in Maryland. I am so happy that you have listened to our voices and put families and children as an imperative priority in Maryland. Please continue supporting this bill so we can ensure access to childcare scholarships for our families. We can't slip backwards. On the contrary, we need to move forward. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Questions for this panel? Thank you all very much. Okay, Senator Benson. 344. You can bring your panel up, your favorables. Senator, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Joanne C. Benson, Senator 24th Legislative District. I'm here to present Senate Bill 344, the Caregiver Tax Credit. This legislation, which has a significant impact on many people in our state, addresses the issues and, in fact, the crisis facing families who are providing care for elderly or disabled family members. Certain caregivers do not earn a fair wage for the amount of work they endure daily, and working families cannot afford to pay them their desired wage. How does one accommodate the need of caregivers who have an essential role in providing quality of life care to people who are elderly and people who are disabled? The caregiver tax credit will directly impact the caregivers by providing them with a credit against their state income tax. The goal of this legislation is to grant some caregivers a credit against their state income taxes equal to 30% of their eligible expenses that exceeds $2,000 in value. This is essential in granting a form of amnesty toward our caregiver initiatives across the state. Out of 5 million people in Maryland, 11% of our citizens have disabilities, and 16.3% are considered elderly. When combined, equal to a total of 27.3% of Maryland residents eligible for caregiver needs. The yearly wage within caregivers' professions rank low outside of private agencies and are given little relief throughout their career. These conditions directly correlate to overexhaustion, which affects their quality of services provided to the residents of Maryland. These statistics emphasize the importance of caregivers and highlight their pay disparities in correlation with their work. Caregivers who are assisting individuals with disabilities often start their workday before their clients wake up and after they fall asleep, resulting in shifts exceeding 8 hours a day. Individuals that need 24-hour assistance cannot be left alone, which can put additional stress on caregivers because they cannot be relieved to go home until the next caregiver comes to work. Insurance does not like to pay for overtime, which also induces stress to caregivers. The unreliable work schedules make it difficult for caregivers to have an additional job to help pay for bills. Therefore, I am respectfully urging this committee to issue a favorable report on this most important bill, Senate Bill 344.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Witnesses whoever wants to go first.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members.
I guess it'll be our.
I apologize. I can wait. No worries.
You're fine. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry if I interrupt anyone who's there live. But good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Isabel Restall. I'm a legal intern with the Workplace Justice Project of the Public Justice Center, and I'm here testifying in support of SB 344. We thank Senator Benson for introducing this important bill. This bill will provide relief and support to thousands of Marylanders who dedicate their time and resources to caring for disabled and aging family members. As of 2020, more than 1 in 5 Americans are family caregivers. These people dedicate their time and resources and give important assistance to their own financial expense. Nearly 8 in 10 caregivers have routine out-of-pocket expenses, which average $7,242 per year. The high cost of caregiving combined with stagnant wages can prevent caregivers from building their own wealth and saving for their own retirement. This bill would ease this strain, and it would allow caregivers to both care for their family members and to avoid financial stress down the line. Secondly, this bill would allow Marylanders to age in their own homes and communities. A vast majority of adults, 90%, prefer to remain in their homes as they age. Aging at home allows people to maintain a sense of independence, to maintain their community support and their social lives. In turn, these connections prevent dementia and also ensure a higher overall quality of life. SB 344 is a simple and common sense way to make caregiving at home a feasible option for the many Marylanders who are aging and disabled and wish to remain at home. It is for these reasons that the Public Justice Center urges a favorable report and supports this bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies, whoever.
Yes, thank you and good afternoon, Chair Gazzoni and members of the committee. I'm Karen Calla. I'm a member of the AARP Maryland Executive Council and resident of Anne Arundel County. AARP Maryland and its members support SB 344, and we thank Senators Benson, King, and Jackson for co-sponsoring it. In 2019, AARP's report Valuing the Invaluable estimated the total cost of uncompensated care by a family caregiver in Maryland to be $9.6 million. Additionally, that same report indicated that a family caregiver spends about 660 hours per year, on average 14 hours per week, caring for a loved one. Nearly 1 in 4 caregivers is a millennial. 40% are men, and about 40% represent multicultural communities. 60% of caregivers are juggling paid work and caregiving, and trends suggest that with the aging of baby boomers, an increasing share of family caregivers will be in the labor force in the future. Those most likely to provide 5 years or longer of care age 50 to 64. Betty, an AARP member, has asked us to share her experience, and she urges this important legislation be passed. In her own words, my parents were married 76 years and took care of each other until they couldn't. When that time came, I needed to step in and help them, and I needed more than 2 weeks off of work. I needed 8 years. I had worked 27 years for a jeweler in Baltimore for which there was no pension. I had no intention of stopping work until at age 59, I left my job and source of future income to become a caregiver for the next 8 years. Fortunately, my husband and I had saved enough money that I was able to devote my life to all 3 of them. How many people are not that fortunate? I urge you to pass SB 344 to provide much needed relief and support for those who, like me, must leave their career, and for those who give of their uncompensated time and resources. Thank you, and we respectfully request.
Good afternoon, Chair Gazzone and members of the committee. I am Virginia Crespo, and I'm here on behalf of the members of the Maryland Retired School Personnel Association. I'm a resident of Anne Arundel County. MRSPA and its members support Senate Bill 344. MRSPA supports services in communities that help seniors to age in place and remain healthy, active, and independent. The out-of-pocket expenses referred to in this bill can be burdensome, since they are often not reimbursed by insurance or government assistance. Offsetting some of these expenses allows loved ones to stay at home and be as independent as possible. It helps the state of Maryland by providing unpaid care and deferring entry into nursing homes and other long-term care facilities. I am surrounded by examples. My family cared for our father at home. I cared for my husband before he passed. My sister cared for her severely handicapped daughter for 40 years until it became physically too hard. My friend's husband died last year of Alzheimer's. She cared for him at home for years. My neighbor's daughter has had to take a leave of absence from work to help care for her father. My brother can no longer live alone, and we are in the process of determining the best placement for him, hopefully at home with family. When I leave here this afternoon, I'm going to visit my friend who is in the final stage of his journey. His wife has cared for him at home for 8 years, including 4 years of nightly dialysis treatment. These are just some of the people this bill would help who live in my world. There are so many more. Please think less about the money not received in taxes and more about the money not spent on care of these people and the quality of their lives. Thank you, Senators Benson, King, and Jackson for co-sponsoring this important legislation. MRSP urges this committee to give Senate Bill 344 a favorable report.
Thank you very much. Any questions? This panel. I have one more person signed up, Andy Club.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Andy Culp, and I'm here to testify on behalf of the Maryland Developmental Disabilities Coalition. The coalition is comprised of 5 statewide organizations, all dedicated to the rights and quality of life of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I'm here testifying in support of Senate Bill 344, and I want to thank the sponsors for putting forward this bill. I just wanted, the points were made prior to me getting up here that were, really important. I just wanted to give you some disability specific statistics, and they're from this fines report that the ARC of the United States does with the Institute on Community Integration from the University of Minnesota. So they do it every, few years. The last one was 2017. It's being done again now. So these statistics are from the 2017 report. 95% of the caregivers that responded to this survey about caregiving for their disabled child, which includes adults, said that caregiving has impacted their work. 55% cut back on their hours, 43% took a leave of absence, 32% gave up work entirely, and 33% or a third of caregivers gave up on promotions. So they're relatively income deprived group of caregiving families. 1 in 4 caregivers reported that they were on a waiting list for a government funded service, and 52% of the caregivers to adults from this survey said they provided over 40 hours of unpaid care to their loved one per year. And they had expenses ranging similar to AARP statistics. 2/3 reported expenses of at least $1,000, with 1/3 said it's been over $5,000 per year for qualifying expenses related to caring for their loved one. So just in closing, I'd like to say that we urge your favorable report and believe that this legislation will begin to address some of the financial hardships that caregivers face. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm honored to be a part of this legislation. I'm not sure. Do we have that document in the packet?
No, but I can email it to some,
To the committee?
Have it.
To the
Yeah.
committee. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, could you be sure that the committee gets a copy of that, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other? Yes, Senator.
Thank you. The longer the time goes past from the time that I was in the situation of taking care of my husband who had Alzheimer's, the easier it is for me to talk about it. But I took care of him at home for almost 10 years before we finally had to put him in a nursing home where he stayed for 3.5 years. But the caregivers have about the hardest job of anything that I could ever imagine. Took me a lot of years to be able to even talk about it, but any relief at all that can be given to these caregivers absolutely is a good thing to do. Been there.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Senator Stallings, 358. You have a witness also?
Yes, sir. And Mr.
Mariano.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mariano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and Committee. For the record, I'm Senator Johnny Ray Sally, and I would like this bill would work to provide and allow for contractors to petition to be reimbursed for the increased costs for materials when the prices dramatically rise, such as the recent case, as we know, COVID. The past 3 years have been a dramatic impact on every area of our lives. One area that has been negatively impact in the area related to the cost of construction materials. Contractors who had agreements with our state have been put in very serious financial strait by having the cost of their materials skyrocket overnight. In some situations, contractors are doing the job for no profit because of the fact that they have had to cover the cost of increased material prices. While we have some prices, they're starting some that is going down. We continue to lack the chain issues of the supplies that we don't have. This bill would allow contractors with the state to have a clause that provide a way to work around the fact that there is dramatic price increases due to events beyond our contractor's control. It allows for a request to be made to adjust the contract because of increased material costs. The definition of what is substantial price increase is left up to the department to allow for flexibility. This bill also has precedence in that there are similar allowances at the federal level. I think this bill could go a long way. I want to thank the Department of General Services having a meeting with me and working with me, and now they are not unfavorable, but they have a lot of information, and we are working on an amendment to make sure that we won't just go to one area of the prices going up, but also the prices that go down. We'll make those adjustments accordingly with the state. And I want to thank also for this committee pacing the study and learning more about this and getting a greater understanding through procurement. And we hope we can get a favorable report on the bill. Thank you so much. And I will answer any question as possible as I can. And I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Bruce Bariano. I'm here on behalf of my client, ACE. ACE is an alliance organization of subcontractor companies that do very skilled, very significant labor work in construction areas. It's predominantly union work. There is some non-union work. They provide apprenticeship programs and are very active in construction for the state. You see them out here every day as you go by, members of ACE and some of the groups that are part of that. We very much thank Senator Rawlings for introducing this bill. And as I think I stated last year, we're very excited that this committee has procurement jurisdiction so that we can have some serious looks at some reality problems that are in the industry. I think there's a well-balanced bill. It's a bill that calls for certain actions or lack of actions or delays on the part of state government of the unit that causes a cost increase or shortage or problem really outside the doing and control of the subcontractors. And the COVID and the changes that were exhibited through that time period have really shown that there's can be a real spike in shortage in building materials that materially impact my client members. We would urge a favorable report on this bill. I think it is balanced. If you read it, it's really delays by the unit or changes of work time by the unit or encountering hazardous materials or concealed by unknown conditions. But there needs to be something to have flexibility. COVID taught us that things can change dramatically. I would urge a favorable report and be happy to work with the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions? What is it? Senator Hellman.
Chairman, Mr. Bariano, I'm just looking at the fiscal note, And I would love if you could respond to a section where it says that in shifting the risk for force majeure events entirely to the state, the bill severely limits the state's ability to negotiate the terms of the modification, including whether an increase in material cost is attributable at all or in part to a specific event. And it also eliminates any incentive for contractors to help mitigate costs resulting from the event. And as a result, cause project costs to escalate more than they otherwise would. Could you comment on that?
Well, there should be a balance. There really should. There's responsibilities on both sides. And I think some of those, some of that language is well taken. And there needs to be some flexibility so that changes can be negotiated. It's not you just stuck with what you signed originally when things have happened outside your control or your blame or your responsibility. What I'm trying to say is I think some of those points are very valid, and I'm sure language can be put in here so that you don't have the same rigidity that you have now. There are unforeseen things that happen. And as you know, Senator, in the bill, a lot of the actions that would trigger the situation would be actions by the unit. I'm not saying that disrespectfully or critically, but might be delay in times or the unavailability of material or something on the state standpoint, and things happen. So I'd be happy to work with the committee and Senator Stallings working with the department in that regard. Thank you.
Can I just say, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, that from what we saw within the last few years, because of COVID, because of demand, because of costs, there was a drastic increase with any contractor, but this is strictly for the state of Maryland, that we have good contractors that do work for the state. They do tremendous work. And I think more than anything, we don't want to lose them, because I think we could lose some really good contractors that have worked for state for decades. And just knowing that, if we could have the opportunity to fix this, it's a rare time that we had something like this happen in this decade, and it affected so many people, but it affected also business. So what we would like to work as I had the opportunity to meet with the Maryland Department of General Services, and they're working with me to make sure that the amendment will work better, because again, we're just not going to go up in price. If it even goes down, we're going to adjust that also to work with them. So thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that, where I'm from, we have a lot of federal buildings that are built with the base. When we put a federal job out for bid, we have a tremendous amount of our local contractors that bid on it. We put a state job out, very few put in for it. And this legislation is covering the accelerator and the deaccelerator that they have in the federal system to try to put that similar in state legislation. Is that correct?
That's correct. The federal department, our government, did a pretty good job in that, and that's why we wanted it. So
thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
I do indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Don Guile, District 33, here to present SB 354. Colleagues, there are nearly 400,000 veterans in Maryland, many of them who call my district home. Veterans face a number of challenges after they leave the military, including unemployment, mental health issues, physical disabilities, or even homelessness. In an effort to help support veterans in Maryland, the state established the Maryland Veterans Trust Fund in 2009. The trust fund is a 501c3 organization governed by a board of trustees chaired by the Maryland VA Secretary. It is designed to assist with non-emergency temporary financial challenges facing veterans or widows or widowers of veterans. The fund's design cannot support chronic, long-term financial hardship. It is mostly used to assist with things like rent, mortgage payments, and utility bills. The trust fund receives funding through the Maryland-based Veteran Service Organization casino slot revenue. It also receives donations from community partners and private individuals. According to the trust fund's fiscal year 2021 annual report, donations from individuals represented less than 5% of its revenue of nearly $400,000 that year. By offering Maryland taxpayers the option to contribute to the trust fund on their annual state tax returns, this bill provides taxpayers with an easy way to donate to a trusted organization that directly improves the lives of Maryland veterans. A Maryland taxpayer can easily check the box and mark it with a donation of their choosing, which would be deducted from their refund. It would also provide the trust fund with additional funding to expand the important work that it is already doing within the state. Some examples that were provided in the fiscal year 2021 annual report include approximately $4,000 that was used to cover past due rent for a veteran in Baltimore who had lost her job. Nearly $3,000 was used to help the widow of a veteran from Charles County get caught up on her past due water bill and utilities bill. Approximately $2,000 was used to pay a car repair bill for a veteran in Montgomery County who lost his job due to the pandemic. That veteran was able to secure a new job, but did not have the funds to get his car repaired to start the new job. Another $2,000 was used to pay the past due utilities for a disabled veteran from Prince George's County. On a personal note, as a veteran spouse, I care very deeply about supporting veteran causes, and I believe that we can all agree that our state owes a debt of gratitude to those who served. I would therefore appreciate a favorable report on SB 354. I would also note that there was a letter from the comptroller just requesting additional time to get the trust fund, assuming this is passed, to get the trust fund checkoff added to future tax return. So with that.
Thank you. Let me see, are there any questions for the sponsor? There's still time after the panel goes. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Senator Rosapep, members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. I'm Patrick Cabal, Legislative Director for the American Legion Department of Maryland and the Fleet Reserve Association with 6 branches throughout Maryland. Senate Bill 354 is a long overdue measure. The Veterans Trust Fund managed by the Maryland Department of Veterans Affairs brings fresh hope to those who have served our country and are financially down. Assistance from the fund means a one-time house or car payment, medical needs, financial needs, and paid directly to the creditor. Funding for the trust comes through individual donations, with its biggest source, the state casinos. While this is helpful, it's also a problem. Existing regulations don't state where the cash box or donations area can be placed, and it's at the whim of the establishment. Now, I visited Maryland Live Casino last year when this bill was being debated, and you couldn't even find it. Certainly not the cashier's box, nor even near on the exit. I did find it. It's by a dimly lit area by the restrooms. Allowing the placement on the tax form would allow for greater contributions and enable a public education for resources to veterans, to the community. In closing, we urge the Budget and Taxation Committee to render a favorable report on Senate Bill 354 and deeply thank Senator Guile, my District 33 Senator, for sponsoring this valuable proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Please. Oh.
All set?
Please proceed.
Yeah. Chairman Gazone and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of Senator Giles' bill. I'm Dave Dragics, a retired Army Colonel and Legislative Director of the Maryland Military Coalition, a nonpartisan nonprofit advocacy organization representing over 150,000 uniformed services connected individuals. Over the last 2 years, the Maryland Veterans Trust Fund has granted record financial assistance, a total of approximately $588,000 to veterans and widowers of veterans in needs. Yet of the $824,000 in receipts during those years, only $30,000, less than 4%, has come from citizens, veteran service organizations, local businesses, and community-sponsored fundraisers. That's because the general public does not know about this fund, that it's a 501c3 organization, and what good it does. Providing an income tax checkoff in the contribution section on Maryland State Income Tax Form 502 will create more awareness of the trust fund and increase the level of giving by the general public. At no time over the last 5 fiscal years has the annual total received from the public ever been more than approximately $22,000. The Maryland Military Coalition believes that level of donations needs to be changed for the betterment of the trust fund in the long term. The cost for making this addition to the tax form, as noted in the fiscal note, is an estimated $79,000 for one-time changes to the comptroller's tax system. But the benefits to the veterans in need of assistance cannot be measured, however. So the Maryland Military Coalition strongly supports Senate Bill 354 and asks for a favorable report from the committee. And we would like to thank Senator Guile for sponsoring this legislation and appreciate her leadership on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, please.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gazone and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. I am David Weber, 5-year Army veteran and resident of Annapolis. I'm here representing AARP Maryland, one of the largest membership-based organizations in the state. AARP Maryland supports Senate Bill 354, and we thank Senator Guile and others for sponsoring this bill. You already have my written testimony, so I just want to make one quick point. I want to reiterate the fact that it's only 3.9% of all the funds into the trust fund come from citizens, veteran service organizations, and local businesses. By establishing a checkoff box on Maryland income tax return forms, an awareness of the Veterans Trust Fund would grow. Added awareness would allow more Marylanders to contribute to the fund, and increased contributions to the fund would allow the Maryland Veteran Trust Fund to continue its important work for helping veterans in need. For these reasons, we respectfully request a favorable report for Senate Bill 354.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from members of the committee? Yes, Senator Jackson.
Just a comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the bill. Love the testimony by the panel. And there is a letter that will be accompanying this from the Veterans Caucus in support. So thank you all.
Any other questions? Yeah, Senator Jennings.
Real quick, Senator Gauze, I can't remember if you mentioned it about the comptroller just asking for a delay. Are you okay with that due to the technology?
Yes.
That they're unable to accommodate the time frame within the bill and they were pushing to 2024?
Yes, absolutely. We're amenable to that amendment.
Okay.
Mhm.
Other questions? I have one for whoever knows the answer. If they don't know the answer, if you can get back to us. Is there any data on the number or percentage of veterans who need this kind of help annually? Any sense of the need?
Did you want
That's not available in the annual report that the Maryland Veterans Trust Fund puts out. They do not disclose those type of numbers. They keep only the receipts and distributions and examples like Senator Guile pointed out. So unfortunately, we're not able to get that information.
I would just make the suggestion to whoever cares. I mean, it would seem to me if we do this, which sounds like a good idea to me, to promote it, it would be good to get some public information out there, letting people know what the need is. So this is a solution so people had a better sense of the problem.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair. That's a good suggestion.
Thanks.
I would agree with that too. In the Maryland resident instruction booklet for Maryland tax residents, I'll get it straight. The resident instruction booklet, there is one page that has 3 of the 4 checkoff contributors. That's the way to do it. I don't think this trust fund is allowed to advertise. I haven't seen any advertising other than the website.
Okay.
So I think if the legislation bill gives a favorable report is passed, then I think the MDVA would be the one to put the ad, so to speak, in that instruction booklet.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Well, there are, but not for you. Thanks an awful lot.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's all right.
We always need a little excitement in here. All right, we've all been waiting for this next one. It's exciting. All right, 267. Senator Watson. You have
Good
a pa-
afternoon,
you have-
Chair.
You have a panel?
I do. They can come on up if they like. You guys can come on. Let me go ahead and get started. Do I have an exciting bill for you?
I
Good
know
to
you,
see everyone.
we know you do. We've been waiting.
Colleagues, I'm pleased to sponsor Senate Bill 267, Internet Gaming. Colleagues, Maryland boasts 6 brick and mortar casinos, each of which contributes to fund our education trust fund. And we know our history in this space, from slots to table games and now sports betting. But we are missing one vital component with respect to gaming, and that's the 4th leg of the casino tool, which is iGaming. Internet gaming means casino-style gaming through an online gaming system. The fundamental aspects of this bill, it creates a new funding stream for education, and I have deep concerns that we need to do what we can to support our blueprint. 15% of the proceeds would ultimately go to the ETF. Initial internet gaming license would be $500,000. License is renewable in 5-year increments at a rate of 1% of the licensee's average annual proceeds for the preceding 3 years. It also allows the governor to enter into agreements with other states participating in multi-jurisdictional internet gaming. It does place protections in place for problem gambling and gambling addiction. And the licenses with this baseline bill are allocated to the 6 existing casinos. Just a little background: Connecticut, Delaware, Nevada, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia have legalized iGaming. Michigan started online gaming in 2021 after a delay due to COVID. I am grateful for the efforts to fund the blueprint, but we have all seen and been briefed that we have some significant challenges to meet in the out years. According to the Comptroller's Office and detailed in the fiscal note, as much as 97 million could be generated by fiscal year 2028. 3 important aspects of the bill I want to highlight. One mentioned that the governor will be able to enter into agreements with other states. So why would we want to do that? There are currently 4 states that have entered into what is known as the Multi-State Internet Gaming Agreement, or MSIGA. In a nutshell, for certain games like poker, it allows players of one state to play with players of the other states, which increases what is known as the player pool or liquidity. The larger the player pool, the larger the jackpots, and hence more revenue. A good way to think of this is consider how Powerball and Mega Millions are currently work. Players from multiple states play in a single game to win a progressive jackpot. Similarly, some of the other states in the MSIGA link their progressive slot machines and other games. The current members of the MSIGA are Delaware, Nevada, New Jersey, and Michigan, and it is my strong desire that Maryland become a player in this space. Secondly, this will require the use of technology, not just to facilitate the online gaming experience, but also to ensure no one physically outside the boundaries of the state of Maryland can play, geofencing. And lastly, what can online gaming do that brick and mortar casinos can't, other than offer an online experience? The answer is micro stakes. There are table game minimums set in every casino to ensure the money wagered is enough to pay for the dealers and keep the lights on. Once a game is converted to an online format, however, you can play a game for any amount, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, be it a quarter, be it $1. You get the point. In closing, this bill seeks to generate a new and missing revenue stream for education, specifically our blueprint, allow our seniors and other members of our community who are uncomfortable entering a casino to play, and allow us to legalize online gaming and capture profits from those who use PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, and other forms of payment who are currently engaging in private online gaming. Colleagues, the passage of this bill will complete the journey that our state started with casinos back in 2008. I respectfully urge a favorable committee report.
Thank you, Senator. Do we ask the Senator a question? Okay.
Senator,
Yes, sir.
You did not mention any hold harm clauses in there, did you?
Would you like to be held harmless, sir?
No, if you're talking about the current status of casinos in the state, here's a hold harm clause that's consistent with the building of the sixth casino. So we just want to make sure that that's not in this particular.
Are you referring to possibly building a new casino?
No. You talked about the existence. I just want to make sure that there is no hold harmless clause in this piece of legislation you have, because currently there is one dealing with the MGM casino.
I understand. And just for the record, I did speak to the AG about this bill a year ago.
Okay.
This is considered an expansion of gaming. So we won't get to the finish line this year, but I would like to work with this committee to iron out the details that you're talking down, and I am talking about, and I am open to what we need to do to capture this important revenue stream.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I think as the committee knows, I've already announced it, I think before, that we are going to be work grouping this.
Thank you.
So we have plenty of time to have discussion on that. Have they already been notified? Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, whatever order you'd like to go.
Sure.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, members of the committee.
Oh, I think they.
I apologize. My apologies.
Good afternoon, Senator Gazone and distinguished members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Antonio Jones, license holder for Riverboat on the Potomac Game and Sports Betting, located in Charles County. And we're proud to say that we now know the first 100% minority-owned sports betting license, retail and mobile in the country, an accomplishment which speaks to the commitment to inclusion fostered by my home state of Maryland. Sports betting was a clear and definitive step forward to bring small and minority businesses into the gaming industry. Senate Bill 267 presents yet another opportunity to do so. We request a favorable report on this bill with amendments that would enable qualified OTBs like the Riverboat on the Potomac to apply for an iGaming license. We have the proven ability to play a role in the sports betting market, having recently entered into our 6th month of operation between retail and mobile app. For those of you who don't know what the Riverboat is, it's a building that sits physically within the Potomac River in Charles County. But our front door faces Colonial Beach, Virginia. 90% of our retail guests come from the state of Virginia, and the same would happen for iGaming. The Riverboat has been trying to restore the modernized Maryland historical gaming legacy, with a focus on new faces, such as mine. As an MBE ourselves, we in the past contracted with several MBEs to build out our facility that's on the Riverboat. And from the comments received from the customers, in a word, they say it's glowing. So I appreciate the steps taken to expand the gaming industry for historically underrepresented groups, and for encouraging we encourage the committee to move forward with the vision of this bill. And for that reason, I respectfully request your favorable approval to move forward. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for having us today. Tim Perry on behalf of the Sports Betting Alliance. The Sports Betting Alliance is comprised of BetMGM, Harry Watson, DraftKings, my friend and colleague Frank Boston, FanDuel, and also Fanatics. We appreciate Senator King and Senator Watson introducing this bill today, and we request a favorable committee report. I'm going to turn over to my colleague, John Mandel, who's a lawyer with the law firm of Orrick, on behalf of the committee as well.
Thank you, Tim. Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. As Tim mentioned, my name is John Mandel, and I'm here today in support of Senate Bill 267 with comments on behalf of the Sports Betting Alliance. Legalizing iGaming presents multiple benefits to Maryland and Marylanders, benefits that are driving 3 other states to consider iGaming legalization this year, in addition to the 6 states that have already legalized iGaming. First, Senate Bill 267 will provide consumers with a safe and convenient way to engage in iGaming. iGaming operators ensure that underage individuals cannot create an account, deposit, or wager through their platforms, employing sophisticated checks to verify a customer's identification. iGaming software undergoes a robust testing process conducted to ensure the games cannot be manipulated. Finally, customers that wager on licensed iGaming platforms can trust that their deposits are safe and that they will receive their winnings. Second, it requires and promotes responsible gaming measures that are not offered by the thriving offshore illegal market. Legal and regulated iGaming operators provide tools and resources to help players manage their gaming habits and prevent problem gaming, including self-limits on the amount of time spent on the platform, caps on account deposit and wagering amounts, and exclusion altogether from the app. Legal and regulated iGaming operators have dedicated player protection teams and provide training to all of their employees to support the monitoring of user accounts for potential problem gaming behavior. And above all, consumers are provided substantial responsible gaming resources and messages directly through the app. And third, it will generate significant tax revenue for the state without impacting traditional gaming offerings, the lottery, or mobile sports wagering. According to our initial estimates, Senate Bill 267 could generate anywhere from $102.9 million in the first year, rising to $150.6 million in year 5. I understand that there's a fiscal note out, and similarly, we're looking at various factors to get you a more updated forecast that we'd gladly share with the committee and the sponsors. In wrapping up, Maryland, this is a great initiative by providing a safe and convenient way for consumers to engage in iGaming. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Frank Boston III. I am here today in 2 capacities on behalf of DraftKings. Not only am I the lobbyist, I am the minority equity partner for sports betting in the state of Maryland. Thank you, Senator Watson, for introducing this bill. DraftKings is a licensed operator of both daily fantasy sports and mobile sports betting in Maryland. We are also licensed. We're also a licensed iGaming operator in Connecticut, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. We are an active member of the Sports Betting Alliance, and we generally associate with their testimony. For this reason, DraftKings supports this bill with an amendment. We largely support this legislation as currently drafted, with the exception of the provision that speaks to market access. In the bill's current form, only casinos get iGaming licenses. When the licensing opportunity is limited to just the state's casinos, it drastically limits competition and further limits the state's ability to realize the most revenue possible. As such, DraftKings asks this committee to please consider expanding market access provisions within the bill to give opportunity for the state's non-casino gaming stakeholders. We look forward to working with you in this regard.
And good afternoon, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kerry Watson. I'm Regional Vice President for Government Affairs for MGM Resorts International, here in support of Senate Bill 267. First, I'd like to thank Senator Watson and Senator King for their support of this initiative. When we opened up in 2017, MGM National, actually the very, very end of 2016, since then, MGM has become a great partner with the state. We were able to announce early in 2022 that we surpassed $1 billion in monies to the Maryland Education Trust Fund. And that's just a small portion, not a small portion, a significant portion of the revenue that we've driven to the state. We have more than 3,000 jobs on that property, and more than 30% of our operational spend goes to minority vendors. And that is, quite frankly, it's better than what the state has performed. I say all that to say, MGM and all of the casinos, the 6 casinos in the state, have been a tremendous partner with the state, and there's an opportunity to even grow more revenue here. Even as the 4th highest revenue gaining state from casino gaming, iGaming could dramatically increase that number, the amount of revenue that's driven to the state. I know there's been some talk of a concern about cannibalization, the idea that if you engage in iGaming and mobile gaming, that it might take away from the retail casino market. I'll just say this, in Detroit, one of our markets that has iGaming, they had record EBITDA years in 2021 and 2022. iGaming was introduced in January of 2021. So that speaks to the potential and growth that we can receive here in Maryland if we do this in a proper way. And I'll close by saying Maryland's casino operators are ready when you are. We're happy to work with you when Maryland wants to become the 7th iGaming state in the United States.
Thank you. Questions? Senator Jennings?
I guess my first is a comment and then a question. And my comment is, I came to the General Assembly in 2003 under Governor Ehrlich. We were pushing for slots, and I remember I was kind of in the middle of the battle there and listening to late Speaker Bush and his concerns about how if we do this, it's going to open Pandora's box. Eventually we got it, I think 2007. I've kind of watched as we're doing this. I mean, we now have sports betting, and I remember Thanksgiving through Christmas, all I heard was FanDuel commercials. More than I heard Mariah Carey's, all I want for you is for Christmas song. It was just nonstop. And I mean that, where are we going too far now that we're going with this? And when you say these numbers about how much we're giving to the Education Trust Fund, that's great, until you really think about what that number is. That's somebody who's gambling that lost, that's going into that fund. So it means that's less revenue in that person's pocket. And look, I'm a free market guy. I gamble. If I'm in a casino, I'll drop $20. That's about it for me. Yeah. So that's my concern. I just wanted to kind of say that is somebody who originally pushed for slots, that it's like, as Speaker Bush said, maybe we are going too far with this. But I do have one question. Sorry, I had to step out. And I don't know if you answered this. It deals with geofencing. How does this work that, here we are in Annapolis. If I go on this laptop right now, can I go to Californians online or another states? Is there geofencing? And then the gentleman that you spoke about, the Virginia, with that, will your facility allow people from Virginia to be able to gamble into the Maryland market?
So so the intent of the bill is to use geofencing. And for those who don't know, that's using GPS to ensure that you can't even access the software to log on and to play those types of games unless you're in the physical confines of the state of Maryland.
It's using your IP.
That's right.
IP address.
And so my friend misspoke. So folks who live in Virginia cannot log on. They would have to physically cross the border into Maryland and do that. Okay. And that's the intent of the bill, to provide that geofencing, to make sure that we know where the players are coming from and we can adequately capture the revenue.
Okay.
If I could just add a moment, just one other point. I mean, it is very good technology. It's pretty remarkable, actually. And you got to remember where National Harbor is located. It's essentially right on the river. If you go over that bridge, you are cut off. I mean,
no, I get that. Yeah. I'm not worried about, because I know how it works. Mm-hmm. And I just was curious, is this going to bring revenue from outside the state? So it's not. It's for the casinos. We're just kind of chipping away at their market share. But if they're the ones that are going to own it,
When I spoke about revenue coming from the state of Virginia, our facility sets on the Potomac River. Folks come into our facility from the state of Virginia to gamble in my retail sports book. Okay, those folks would be just as happy to come in there to sit in there on the water and do iGaming. That's what I mean by revenue coming in to the state.
I understand that.
And geofencing doesn't interfere. That's all in Maryland. Okay, but they reside in the state of Virginia.
Right. And the other thing that enhances that, Senator, is this multi-state internet gaming agreement. If you and I play a game of poker and each of us has 100, the max one of us could win is 100. But when you look at the number of players in the state, add that to the number of Delaware players, add that to the number of Virginia players, now you're talking larger player pools. I keep using the reference, think Powerball. The more people to play, the quicker jackpots go up. And when someone wins, there is more tax revenue associated with it.
And one more question, Mr. Chairman. I know when I hear the casino commercials and gambling commercials, they always have the 1-800 number for abuse. Do we know how we're doing on that side of the equation? Do we have any data that tells us here's how many people are calling, here's how many people are actually having, addictive problems with this? I don't know if we have any
That is
data.
absolutely something we can get for you. I certainly don't have it on top of my head, but that is very easy for me to get.
All right, thanks.
Very good. Senator Zucker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I don't know who would be the best person to answer this. So right now, as the bill's drafted, it doesn't include OTBs, correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay. And then in terms of, we just expanded sports betting recently. So in terms of, we'd also put money for problem gaming. Is there anything in here that would address that?
So let me speak specifically to that. So when I worked with the bill drafters, I gave them a copy of the multi-state internet gaming agreement. To become a member in a participating state, there are various requirements that our state has to satisfy, and properly dealing with problem gaming and those types of things are one of those provisions. So I can certainly share a copy with you, but as I said, I'm more than happy to work with this committee to iron out those details and ensure we're doing what we need to do for those people who have those issues.
So in terms of, so you talked to the AG's office, you said, so does this require another disparity study?
That is a good question that I'd like to have a deep dive conversation with us about. My initial conversations were minorities have never really played in this space. And there are very few minority companies that actually have the 15, 20 million back end to play banker. And we saw that in several cases when it came to sports betting. But I'd like to have that conversation with you. I would like, if possible, to build in some kind of, either equity component or the ability to engage and attract MBEs like this gentleman's company right here, so that we can spread the wealth, if you will. But, I'm all about building generational wealth. And to the extent we can do that, I'm all open to try.
And based on what we did does this have to go to the ballot if we do something on this?
This does have to be this is a referendum.
So then it would have to have a disparity study.
Do all referendums have to have a disparity
It would
study?
absolutely have to. On this type of thing, it would. Yeah, because yes, we'll talk offline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and we will be talking a lot about this. Is there anyone else in the audience who is here to testify in favor? Anyone else who wants to testify in favor? Okay, then we'll thank this panel. And
Mr.
we
Chair.
have one person online in favor.
Thank you, members. Sorry, go
ahead.
Shall I go?
Welcome. Yep, welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, members of the committee, for having me today. My name is Elise Cohen, and I am the owner of Long Shots OTB and Sportsbook in Frederick, Maryland. I had the pleasure of testifying 2 years ago on behalf of both OTBs and MBEs when this very committee was crafting what is now the successfully executed sports betting legislation. Once again, I'm here to represent Long Shots OTB, which is in favor of being included in SB 267. The 4 standalone OTBs are primarily a coalition of woman-owned and minority-owned businesses. In fact, I'm the only 100% woman-owned sportsbook in Maryland. As one of the most diverse states in the country, Maryland has rightfully looked to prioritize underserved communities. iGaming should be no different. By giving only the casinos the ability to expand their online presence, any true equity inclusion for women and minorities is lost. What I mean is real ownership, similar to the intent of the sports betting bill. Furthermore, the casinos' only online gaming is sports betting, which is no different than the OTBs. If casinos are allowed to expand their online holdings and the OTBs are not, then I would argue that the casinos are being given an unfair advantage. Such a leg up has the potential to destroy the OTB's business. While OTBs are not casinos, we are gaming centers who compete for the same customers against the much larger and more powerful casinos. We also have to maintain the same security measures as the casino with far less income to cover the costs. To remain viable businesses, OTBs need to be treated equally. This means including OTBs in iGaming legislation. In conclusion, I ask the committee to please consider including the 4 OTBs in SB 267. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, now we have, I think, one unfavorable, Sushant. Yeah, we know this guy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Sushant Sid here on behalf of Delta Bingo. Let me just say this. We're not opposed. We were opposed to the bill as I'm signed up. We're not opposed to the concept of internet gaming. In fact, Delta Bingo operates a internet-based bingo game in Ontario, licensed and regulated by the provincial government of Ontario. And in fact, it's kind of funny, today they actually go live with their online casino platform in the province of Ontario. We're opposed to the fact that this bill only allows licensed casinos in the state to operate this when there's so many other capable vendors in the state of Maryland, nationally and internationally. Casinos, and again, I think you've seen me here before the committee on many occasions, sometimes sparring with the casinos, but they seem to have this sense of entitlement that they know everything best. And that's just not the case. And in fact, just to remind everyone, recently, casinos in the state of Maryland took illegal bets on sports before they were authorized to. I'm not sure how that happens, but it did. And then when the regulator punished them, it was effectively a slap on the wrist. And so that goes to show you that when they have this moral authority on gaming, it's not necessarily true. There are other gaming companies in the state of Maryland, including the bingo industry, that's operated for decades and operated following every rule, regulation, and law. So we believe that a system should be developed to vet all competent vendors with experience to allow them to operate, not just the chosen few. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions for Sid? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll see you all in the work group, I'm sure. All right, that concludes the hearing on that bill. Senator West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, it's a pleasure to be here to present Senate Bill 309. This is a very modest bill. And it's because there is a concern that has arisen about a state statute. So the purpose of this bill is to merely clarify the state statute, not to change the law in any way, but to clarify the state statute. So in Baltimore County, there is a charter provision that provides as follows. No person shall serve as a member of the county council while the person holds any other office or employment for profit of or under the county or the state. So there is a county councilman in Baltimore County who is a teacher in Harford County. So he holds no office of employment for profit in Baltimore County, the county, namely Baltimore County, or the state. He's a Harford County teacher. However, it has been pointed out that every teacher in the state participates in the state's teacher retirement system. And the suggestion has been made that because he is going to participate in the retirement system of the entire state of Maryland, covering all public school teachers, that he therefore could be arguably an employee of the state and would therefore have to leave his position as a member of the Baltimore County Council. So this bill clearly says, it's really short, it says this act is intended to clarify existing law and is not intended to alter the legal status of any individuals or positions. The substantive part of the bill specifically says an individual may not be deemed an employee of the state by reason of the individual's status as a member of the teacher's retirement system. That's it. It's to clarify that this member of the Baltimore County Council is not disqualified from serving on the Baltimore County Council because he teaches in Harford County and and therefore he gets state retirement benefits. Now, yesterday I got a letter from the State Retirement Agency, which is very long and very complicated and very technical. And I will tell you, retirement issues are not in my wheelhouse. They suggest that this bill possibly could create issues under the Internal Revenue Code that require members of the retirement system to be governmental employees. Well, this individual is a governmental employee in Harford County. So I'm not sure why this is concerning, but I would like to take a look at this and talk to the folks at the State Retirement Agency. So I hope you'll take this bill under advisement. And once I iron out whatever their concern is, I will send a letter to the committee advising whether or not I think that the concern is a serious one. And if so, they do have a suggested change, which would mean not making the change in this bill, but rather making a change to the education article. I'm not sure we want to do that. But I'd like to take a look at it. So with the indulgence of the committee, let's just hold this until I have a chance to talk to the folks at the retirement agency.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep. Any questions?
You stymied that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, last one up. Senator McKay. Not Senator McCray.
Well, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good afternoon. For the record, Senator Mike McKay presenting Senate Bill 384, Garrett County tax sales auctioneer fees. I thought I would start out. Do I take one? Do I take one? Do I take one? 555? No, anyhow, I apologize. No, I didn't. It's bad. Anyhow. All right. The purpose of this bill, however, is to increase the tax sale auctioneer fees for each property sold. With an onset of COVID-19, these auctions were conducted online. This allowed for a larger participation in the community as well as those outside of our community. I humbly ask that you allow Garrett County to increase its tax sale collection from $8 to $10. We do have, I don't know if there's testimony that has filed. No, but then I will submit supporting testimony from the Garrett County Commissioners. With that, I urge.
And I guess we have a
report.
delegation letter already.
Yeah. Well, really, the vote was easy. It was the wrangling and meeting for the buffet that we met at. That's where we were decided which one we were going to.
Right. All right. Very good. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to take a break until quarter after. And we'll start voting quarter after. Thank you all.